Hello, friends and families. Welcome to the EDUCA DPS podcast, where we inform families and connect communities. My name is Javier Ibarra, your host of the English version of this podcast. And today, in the EDUCA studios, we have Megan Miccio, school social worker from Thomas Jefferson High School, also known as TJ. And our topic will be about the behavioral and emotional screening system here in Denver Public Schools, also known by the acronym BESS. Megan, welcome to the EDUCA studios. How are you today?
Good, thanks for having me.
Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself? How long have you been with the district?
Yeah, so I started in the 2017-2018 school year.
Okay.
And I've been with TJ ever since for 3 days, and then 2 days I support other social workers and psychologists as a senior team lead.
Wow, and just for our folks who are getting to know all of the different positions that we have here at DPS, what is the most gratifying thing about your job?
So I love working at TJ. We've got a great team. I love the mental health team that I get to work with. Our students are amazing. I love getting to connect with our students and families and different community members. I live in the community, so I feel really close to this school network.
I hear you have one of the best commutes out of anyone at DPS.
It's pretty great. It's about 4 minutes.
Oh my goodness. That's exciting. Well, for our audience, I want to give you a little bit of background of today's topic. So, as part of DPS's safe and welcoming priorities, universal behavior and emotional screening is being implemented in all district-managed schools 2 times a year. The purpose of screening all students is to implement a proactive approach to meeting student needs. Data from the screening results are used to provide students with access to the appropriate supports. And with that, Megan, my first question for you is, what is universal behavioral and emotional screening?
So universal behavioral and emotional screening provides school teams with a systematic and reliable way of assessing the behavioral and emotional strengths and potential risk level in children and adolescents. Since 2017, Denver Public Schools has used the BASC-3, and during the 25-24 school year, DPS requires district-run schools to screen students 2 times a year. Universally screening students aligns with the DPS instructional framework of safe and welcoming schools.
And so since 2017, that's when you started. So this is kind of, it's in a way full circle for us. My next question for you is, along the lines of the same thing, why is universal behavior and emotional screening needed? Why do we want to take a proactive approach to this?
Yeah, so just as students participate in screenings for vision, hearing, physical health, reading, and other academic areas to help ensure students are getting what they need, we also need universal behavioral and emotional screening. Screening allows for early identification of behavioral or social emotional supports that can offset current or future risk in students. Universal mental health and social emotional screening also helps school teams identify trends across grades, classes, or groups of students to support universal social emotional instruction. For this reason, DPS chose the BESS as it is available in multiple languages, and it allows for multi-rater input, so student, teacher, parent, guardian perspective, which provides a comprehensive picture of a student's social, emotional, and behavioral health functioning.
So here at DPS, one of our core values is students first. How does the BESS support DPS in the value of students first? Can you tell us specifically, how does this show up at TJ?
At Thomas Jefferson High School, administering and analyzing the BESS data is a team effort with collaboration from administrators, teachers, counseling, and mental health staff. We're able to put students first when implementing interventions universally or individually. Thomas Jefferson High School has been utilizing the BESS since 2019. And each year, we have a very successful student response rate. Our goal is to screen every student to ensure we're supporting students as best we can. The mental health and counseling team will look at the data to make sure any student with an extremely elevated score has a connection with one of us at the school.
Well, it sounds like we have a lot of benefits to this screening. We want to know, myself and the audience included, can you think of a story, a student who received support as a result of the BESS screening? And what did that look like?
Yes, in fact, I still have a handwritten note from that student thanking me for giving them the time and space in my office to talk and reflect about what was going on in their life. This particular student was elevated or extremely elevated across the different BESS subcategories. And while I did start working with this student individually, they did join a weekly small group focusing on their anxiety and learning more healthy coping skills. I facilitated a weekly small group using the Coping Cat intervention for anxiety. And I've been facilitating small groups for the last 6 years at TJ, and students are always nervous to join and start a group. But once the groups begin and students start to see the similarities and realize that they're not alone in having these anxious thoughts and feelings, it's when those real connections are made. The student I mentioned above really started to open up in the groups, initiating conversations in the group, as well as making connections with other students. And after the small group ended, this student would advocate the need for check-ins and share with me how they would use their coping strategies, whether it was at school, at home, or out on the soccer field.
You mentioned there's something called Coping Cat. What exactly was that? Coping Cat?
Yeah, so Coping Cat, it's one of the interventions that DPS uses. It's specific for anxiety, so it helps students recognize when they're feeling anxious, what some triggers might be, and then really practicing some healthy coping strategies.
Because of the work that we get to do here at the EDUCA studios, I get to learn a lot about what the district's doing, and then invite experts like yourself on the show. And this is one of them, right? I think back to when I was a student here at DPS coming up, and I don't believe we had something like this. And I just think how beneficial it would have been to a lot of my classmates to have these sorts of screenings, this proactive approach to their education, right? Because we talk about the term whole child, right? We're not just focused on the academics or necessarily the sports or even activities, but it's about the entire emotional, academic being of the student, and this falls right with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like students really respond well when they join groups. Like I said, they do get nervous at first, but then they just kind of just fall right in, and they really look forward to the group each week. They really make those connections with students, and then they're just learning a lot of how can I manage some of my anxiety when I maybe am sitting in a class or getting ready to take a test.
I think because of social media, right, we're in some ways even more connected, but in some ways less connected. And so I think that it's really great when you have these small groups for other students to understand, like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this.
Yeah.
You know, and now we have a professional like yourself in our buildings to help students cope with all that, which is really exciting in my opinion.
Yeah.
My next question for you, Megan, it has to do with the numbers, right? How is the BESS data shared? I don't imagine we share student data, anything like that, as far as like their name, their likeliness, anything like that. But what are we doing about trends? What are we doing about getting ahead of this and having a proactive approach?
Sure. So at TJ, the mental health and counseling team are constantly looking at the data. This helps us guide the interventions for universal, so tier 1, small group, tier 2, or individual support, tier 3. And we look at the different demographic data in order to see what trends there are. And this information is shared with staff during our professional development time. This year, I was able to present at an all-staff meeting to show teachers how to look at their teacher report when compared to the student self-report. And when teachers are able to see the student self-report next to their teacher report, it can provide great insight between the student and teacher dynamic. And the BESS data is discussed throughout the whole school year. At the end of the year, I'll put together a report comparing our fall and spring data and list all the prevention and interventions programs that we utilized. This is a great visual to support why we do the BESS and how it puts students first.
And students first is exactly what we do here at Denver Public Schools.
Yeah.
Megan, I want to ask, so you're a parent. We talked about this right before we started the show. You're a parent. And so my next question comes from parent, caregivers, families, really. Are they able to complete the screener for their student?
Yes, and we hope that they do. Parents and caregivers know their children best and have a unique perspective of the student outside of school. While all students parents or caregivers can complete the form, we really need ECE through second grade families to complete the BESS for students, as students in these grades are too young to complete the form themselves. Parents, guardians, caregivers can access the BESS parent report form at this link, and school teams may create a shortened hyperlinks to support parent completion. Parents and caregivers will need to have their student's ID number and date of birth to access the form.
And this form can be accessed in multiple languages, I assume?
Correct.
Very nice. So we talked about the data, we talked about parents filling it out. My next question, I want to know, what is one thing that folks should take away from this conversation?
I hope that schools can see how valuable the BESS data is for their school community. The BESS team has done a great job pairing interventions and curriculums with the appropriate grade level after teams have analyzed the data. And schools can then determine what will work best for their school community. The BESS has been a great link for schools to support all students.
I believe that we're doing a lot of great things here at DPS and truly shaping the leaders of tomorrow, but really the society of tomorrow. And we're doing it with screeners like this, by being able to provide students with the services that they need, right? They can go on to be great members of our DPS community. Megan, before I let you go, do you have a final message for us?
I just encourage all schools to participate in the BESS. Like I said, it really does put students first, and we really want parents and guardians and caregivers to provide that input, so we really can support the whole child here in DPS.
And then for our folks watching and for our folks listening, we're gonna link the website where they can go and find out for more information. Megan, I want to thank you for joining us today and being so open to come on and talk about this subject.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. Well, this concludes our EDUCA DPS podcast for today. I want to give a big thank you to our guest, Megan Miccio, for sharing this important information. I'd like to ask all of you who are listening, watching, to please share this content and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Denver Public Schools Plus. That is the best way to support this podcast and Denver Public Schools. You can also find more of our multimedia productions on YouTube. If you're looking to find us on your favorite podcast platform, just search for the Denver Public Schools Podcast Network. Our gratitude goes out to the entire communications department, and a big thank you to our proud Superintendent of Denver Public Schools, Dr. Alex Marrero, for his continued support to the EDUCA DPS podcast and all of our multimedia productions. Don't forget to tune in into our EDUCA DPS podcast, where the learning journey continues. And remember to tell your children more often, I believe in you and I know you can do it. My name is Javier Ibarra. Until next time.